What's going on, guys? My name is Cody, owner and operator over here at Trusted Auto Glass LLC here in Portland, Oregon. And in today's video, what we're going to be doing is we are going to be going start to finish on a full windshield replacement. I'm actually going to have a camera in front of my face and I'm going to show you guys in very deep detail every step of the way as we're going. While showing you guys every step of the way, I'm also going to be going over each and every tool and material that I'm using during the whole process. So with almost a decade of experience in the industry, I have a lot of very good small details that's going to help you guys either grow as a technician or just learn how to do the job in general. So let's get the camera put in front of my face, let's get started, and let's show you guys a little bit of everything that we have to do. All right, so the very first thing that we want to do before we even do any work on the car is we want to make sure that we have the correct glass for the car. So today we're doing it on a 2013 Toyota Corolla. So the part number for the Toyota Corolla windshield is a foreign window 3260 GBY. And what the GBY means is that the glass has a green tint with a blue shade band across the top. And the Y stands for yes, there are attachments, which is a molding all the way around the glass. So when you're getting the glass from the warehouses, which I got this one from Migrant Glass here in Portland, Oregon, when you're getting it, you want to make sure you are inspecting the window of any scratches. You want to make sure that the molding is on nice and straight. You want to make sure there are no chips around the edge of the glass. Once you get that, you're good to pick it up, take it home, work on the car. So what we want to do is we want to get the glass flipped over here. So like I said, the most important thing is making sure that we have the right glass for the car. You're gonna notice that it does have this blue shade band across the top. And then you're also gonna notice on the car does not have the blue shade band, but the customer is okay with this and they actually thought it would be a nice little upgrade for them. So we have it on the new glass. Also, one thing to take into consideration is the mirror bracket. You wanna make sure it is the same on the windshield before you cut it out. And on this one, it is just the normal rear view mirror bracket, so we are good to go to remove and install this right on the new glass. So most windshields are going to be equipped with a black frame kind of around the edge of the glass. This is actually called the frit band. So what the frit band does is it allows the urethane to attach to the glass much better than just bare glass. And the frit band is also used to help keep out heat around the edge of the glass, which is where pressure is most important. So what we have to do is we have to make sure this is very clean and it has zero contaminants on the frit band, so that way it makes the best connection to the urethane as possible. So what we're going to use is spray away glass cleaner, and we're just going to spray it all the way around, and then we will move on to the next step. So to decontaminate the frit band the best way possible, we are going to be using a Sika scrub pad, or you can also use a purple Scotch-Brite pad as well. You're pretty much just going to rub the edge of the glass and make sure it's decontaminated. So we're just going to be getting it nice and clean, that way the urethane sticks great. And then to clean, you want to use a brand new microfiber. I usually use a new one every time I'm cleaning glass, but the cleaner you want the glass, use a cleaner rag. So all we're going to do is we are just going to dry it and wipe it just like that. So now that the glass is nice and clean and decontaminated, the glass is now ready to go into the car, but we have to get the old one cut out and we have to go through all that process first. So we'll just leave this sitting here ready to go. So the very first thing that I like to do is I like to just get in the car and get everything on the inside removed first. That way, once we start working on the outside, we don't have to worry about hitting any wires or hitting any sensors or anything up here that, you know, could get in the way of cutting it out. So for this Toyota Corolla, this is one of the most basic rear view mirrors possible. So the way these come off is you just take a Torx 20 bit and it will come off with just a little simple screw. Right up here, you twist it just a little bit and it should come off. So here's a T20 screw, you just unscrew that a little bit, comes right off. And then also what I like to do is I like to see if they have any oil change stickers up here in the corner like most people do. So I'll always remove these and put them on the new glass, so that way they know when their oil change is due. Okay, now we're just gonna pop the hood. So we have a huge issue in this industry of people that when they replace windshields, they do not like to remove this plastic part, which is called the windshield cowl. Usually those people in the industry, we call them hacks because they are pretty much cutting corners to make the job go by faster. But once we get a little further into the process, you guys are going to see and understand why it's an issue when you do not remove this. So Let's go ahead and get this removed, and then we will move on to actually cutting out the windshield. So most of the cowls are pretty much the same. There's some differences and there's some more advanced ones, but this one here is super simple, and learning just this one alone, it could definitely help you to get to the more advanced cowls. But most cowls here are gonna have just a small clip here on the side. Most of the time they break, which is completely fine. You can actually just order like replacement ones in a big pack from Amazon, or you can actually get them from the dealer themselves. Once the two corner pieces are removed, we are going to start by removing the wiper nut caps here. Most of the time these are missing. Most of the cars usually also have them as well, but usually you just remove them with your hand and you should be good to go. So most different vehicle manufacturers will have different wiper nut sizes here. Most Japanese manufacturers, they will have usually 14 millimeter nuts on the wipers, but each car is different for the most part, so you want to make sure you get the right size. That way you're not stripping out the wiper nuts or the wiper post that the wiper actually is on to move. This one here is just a 14 millimeter, so we're going to get these off. So when removing the actual wiper arms, you're gonna notice here at the joint, this is where you can actually lift the wipers up to like change the wipers. So what we're gonna do is, usually if the car is newer, you're able to do this, but what you wanna do is you wanna press down right on the joint, and then it's gonna release the pressure on the arm, and then you just pop it up like this. Get on this side, comes off just like that. So once we get the wipers off, we can now release the cowl, which usually just comes up like so, and then this actually disconnects here, and then we just completely remove this out of here. So some windows will actually have what we call a free floating molding design, where there is no molding underneath the glass. There's also some moldings, which in this instant is an underside three-sided molding, and this is a underside three-sided molding on the new glass. So this one comes pre-applied. I did not have to apply this one, but on some you may have to apply it, which is pretty straightforward, pretty easy. And then some cars will actually have a design where the molding goes over the glass or sits over the body. So a good example is here on my work van, there's a molding that is attached to the side of the glass, and it actually runs all the way around and it sits over the body like you see up top. So there are many different ways to cut out a windshield. But for the sake of today's video, we're going to be using a tool that we call a cold knife here in the auto glass industry. You can actually find these tools for pretty cheap on Amazon, or you can actually buy one from Harbor and Freight. I don't recommend that one, but if you guys are in a pinch and you need to get a window removed, you could definitely go to Harbor Freight, pick up one of these, and you can get a window cut out for sure. So what we're gonna do with this tool here is we are going to cut three sides. We're gonna cut the side, the top, and the other side, and then we will get into the next tool that we're gonna use to cut out the bottom. So you're gonna see that the blade has a good angle here, and it's supposed to sit under the window and be at a perfect 90-degree angle as you're pulling down. So a trick to using a cold knife properly is you want to keep a nice firm grip on the handle, and then you want to use this hand to pull it. But you want to make sure that you're keeping the angle nice and straight and even the whole time. You want to keep it completely 90 degrees with the glass. So I'll always start from the top corner and then pull down, and then we'll pull halfway across, and then we'll go to the other side, grab it, and then you're gonna pull it to the corner, round it, and then pull it down. So when we're inserting here, sometimes it can be really tight. So that's why it's good to get a blade that has the gel coating on the back, so that way you're not scratching the roof or scratching other things that you don't need to be scratching. So when it goes in, you want to essentially put it in between the molding and the glass. Okay, now that we're in, we can start pulling. And you want to make sure you don't go too far down, because as the window goes deeper behind the fender, you don't want to scratch the fender, so you want to stop right at about the fender start point or a little higher. Now we could just pull it right back up because we already cut there. And then we're going to round the corner like this. And then now this one is the same. You're going to keep the grip very strong on the handle, and then you're going to pull halfway across. So now we'll go to the other side of the car. Now we're gonna pull like so. So one trick that I learned after cold knifing for almost 10 years is as soon as you start pulling, you wanna keep a nice momentum. You don't want to yank it all the way through, but you want to keep a nice momentum instead of like chattering it. So we're going to come all the way down. So right before the end, you actually want to stop so that way you don't slip out and you actually scratch the paint. So what you want to do is you want to get close to the end, and then we're going to get a good tight grip on both hands. And then you could just kind of wobble it to the end or walk it to the end slightly. That way you can round it on the edge of the glass like this. Perfect. And then now, once you get it around the corner safely without damaging the paint, now what you can do is pull it down and get the last side cut. Okay, so sometimes when you move the handle at a incorrect angle, you can get glass breakage here, which is okay because we're replacing the windshield anyways. So now we pull it back up and we release it out. So we want to make sure that the glass is out on the 3 sides. And the way we do that, we just reach right in, make sure it lifts just like that. So that side's clear and this side is clear and up. So the next tool that we're going to use, before I bring it out, I want to show you guys something here. Sometimes on the older vehicles, after the sun has completely been on it for so many years, you're going to see here in the corner, this is part of the dash pad. So that already is starting to come up. So we just like to point things like that out to the customers. That way they don't say that we have damaged it. So for cutting out the bottom portion of the glass, there are many ways we can do it. We can do it with an extractor, we can do it with pull wire, we can do it with a long knife. There's just so many ways to do this. All right, so here is an extractor. This is the form of cutout that we are going to use for the bottom of the glass on this one. So this tool is not recommended for inexperienced technicians. This is for more experienced technicians that have been around the game a lot longer and are comfortable with using the sharp tools that we use to cut out the glass. Now essentially all this is, it's just a Sawzall with a flat pancake blade. Now on this one, the one I have, I actually cut this corner out here. I use this as like a personal preference. However, what I recommend is just getting a brand new flat blade here and not doing this. This is just kind of a way that I have liked to do it over the years, but we don't need to go into that part here. So when using the extractor on the inside, you essentially want to make sure that the blade is not surpassing the glass, because then you might hit some other plastic components or metal components that are down here in the cowl area. So you want to make sure over time you're really going to learn a good discipline on making sure you're not hitting paint or hitting any plastic or metal material. So that way we're not going in there super dry. We're just going to use plain old water in a water bottle squirter. And we are going to squirt it all the way down on the inside to keep it nice and lubricated while we cut. Just going to get the water all nice and in there. As we start cutting, we are going to be standing outside of the car for the first couple inches. That way we can make sure that we're not dinging the paint here or any of this rubber, so we can really get a good view on the extractor on how it's oscillating. You also want to make sure that you get your extractor blade over the side A-pillar and in between the glass. You don't want to be hitting this blade on the A-pillar or else you're going to be buying the customer a brand new one. Okay, so now that we have gotten a couple inches over, now we can actually get into the car and cut about halfway down. So you're also going to notice that I'm bracing my hand on the dash. It's totally fine on most newer cars, but if you're working on like an old pickup truck, you do not want to be resting your arm and keeping weight on it. Even though I have my arm resting here, I'm not putting my whole body weight on it. I'm just using it more as like a guide stop for my hand on the end of the extractor. So that way we're not going too far down into the cowl area. And as you're cutting, keeping the tool at a slight angle away from you is good to help the blade slide through the old urethane better. Okay, so usually I get to about the halfway point and then we'll rotate and go over to the other side. So on most of these blades, it's gonna say this side toward glass. So when we go to the other side, we actually have to take this off and put it the other way. So the reason for flipping the blade is we want to keep the battery end of the tool away from the A-pillar. That way when we're in there, we're not, you know, rattling it and it's not hitting the A-pillar and creating marks. So we want it away, but we also have to make sure that we're using this side towards the glass. So once you flip the blade in the tool, the battery will now be away from the A-pillar. Same thing on this side. Okay, now that we got a little bit over, we can get inside the car and finish the rest of the bottom cutout. Okay, now that we're cut, we can give it a little lift and make sure it's all the way out, which it is. So while you're cutting out glass, I do recommend using cutout gloves, which I am not using, as you can see, but I'm sorry, I'm stubborn. I don't know why. It's just a bad habit that I do not, but I do recommend using them while you're cutting out the glass. So as we lift the glass to get it out of the car, there is a trick. You do not want to lift the glass up like this. You want to rotate it vertically and then lift it. That way when you lift it, the glass doesn't fold down and break right in the middle, because as you can see, there was tons of cracks on this, so it is a pretty fragile window. So we want to make sure we're going vertical and then lifting out. Vertical and then up. Now what we do with the old windshields is we actually take them to the warehouses that we buy the new windows from, and we actually recycle them into a big dumpster. That way we are not getting a bunch of plastic in places that we don't need to get it. So now that the window is all cut out, we are good to start cutting off the old urethane and getting the surface ready for the new urethane. That way we have no issues. So you're gonna see right here on this dash foam, you can see how it was already coming off. But what we're gonna do is we're just gonna take the end of where the adhesive starts and we just rip it right off. That way we're not taking off the whole thing. So there are a wide variety of tools to use to cut this old urethane off. The main two is just a normal scraper blade here. And there's also what we call a long knife, which is just a long handle with a razor blade on the end of it, which is not the best for cutout, but it can work if you get really good at it. But for scratching the car less, I definitely recommend just using a normal scraper blade with a scraper on the end. There are many variants of this one here as well. So the first thing to keep in mind when we start cutting is you want to always make sure you cut away from yourself. These blades are extremely sharp. I have actually got myself with it a couple times, and I had to learn the hard way over the years to cut away from yourself, never cut toward yourself. So here you're gonna notice there is an edge on the blade that is kind of slanted. I always like to put the slant up towards the sky. And then all we're gonna do is you wanna make sure you are not gonna be hitting the side paint. So what you wanna do is just start, go nice and slow. And you don't wanna put a lot of pressure, let the tool do the work. You could lift up on the urethane as you're cutting away the old one, like so. Sometimes when it's a little wider here, you might have to go half and then cut the other half down right below it. Now I'm a little taller, so I can make it reach quite far. And then we're just gonna set right down in there. And then now on most of these, you can actually take this molding and actually peel it away from the old glass. So as you're cutting, you wanna make sure that you're not putting the blade anywhere where it does not need to be. So you don't wanna be scratching down the whole side of the pillar here. Keep it nice and straight and just pull straight up. Now we can go up. We're gonna circle it around. Now once you get to these corner tabs here, you can just lift up and pull the tab off. Now you're good to continue cutting. And then what I'll do is I will cut it off right at the end, get it out of the way of the car. Okay, now same thing, we're gonna start here in the middle, cut away from ourselves, just like so. We're gonna go to the end here. Okay, so now that we got all the old glue cut off, what we can do is we can actually take a vacuum cleaner and we can get all of the debris and all of the dirt off of the pinch weld and out of the cowl area. And I was just using the Milwaukee cordless vacuum for this one. So as we cut it down, we want to make sure that we get the old urethane cut off as much as we can, so that way there is a very small last little bit of glue that's left, and that is called the bond line. So the new urethane sticks best to itself, which in return is the bond line here. As you can see, it goes all the way up and around. That is what we want to make sure we keep very clean and that we apply the new urethane to accurately. So the adhesive company that I use primarily, that I love very much, is Sika. So Sika recommends that you actually clean the pinch weld before you cut the old urethane. However, it is just a recommendation. It is not a requirement because it is optional. Over the last 10 years, I have noticed once I clean it after I cut it, I get the pinch weld very clean, and I've had 0 leaks in about 8 years. So this is the way I do it. You can gripe all you want in the comments, but this is what has been working for me and tons of other technicians in this industry. But living here in the Pacific Northwest, you're gonna notice that we get a lot of dirt and debris under the windows. So what I've noticed is if you use water to clean the pinch weld, it leaves a big muddy mess and it is hard to clean. So what I actually use is just our glass cleaner that we use to clean the glass. I'll just spray the glass cleaner on all 4 sides here, just like so. We want to get it nice and coated, that way we get a lot of the dirt and debris up. So to clean, I use a newer or clean-ish microfiber, and we get it nice and clean. So as we're cleaning, when you grip the microfiber, you really want to try to get your fingers in the crevices here. So as I'm wiping, I'm keeping my finger nice and tight. That way the rag gets in the crevices nice and good. I'll usually hit a couple passes with it. Try not to keep the rag on the paint too hard, but I give it a couple passes to keep the whole area very nice and clean. So now what I'll do for customers as just a nice courtesy thing that I do, I will take a nice cleaner part of your rag and I'll give the dash just a little light spray. You don't want to do this too often with the sprayway glass cleaner, but a one-time thing is completely okay. And we'll just give her a nice wipe down and get in these nice hard to reach areas. A majority of these side pillars are also plastic, so it's okay just to give them a nice little wipe, but I would also make sure to double check if they are cloth or plastic. Same thing on the other side. Remember, we're getting into the cracks and crevices with our finger. We don't want it to be dirty at all. I also like to make sure that you wipe their VIN plate so it's nice to see. Okay, same thing on this side, give it a nice spray. Okay, all clean. Okay, so now that we have the old glue cut off and the surface nice and clean, what we are going to do is we are going to take this little yellow stick here, which is a Sika 207 stick. This is actually a glass vial filled with primer. And what this primer is going to do, it's going to cover any scratches on the pinch weld, and it's also going to cover any gaps in the urethane bond line. So this is one form of primer that we can use. There's also another form of primer which is in a metal bottle, and it is also the same stuff that's in this glass vial, but you can put it on a dauber to cover more area at once. So what we do is we just give it a little shake here, and then we're going to crack it and hear the glass vial break like that. And then we are going to let a little bit come out. We're going to bring it to the car, give it a good little squeeze. And then we want to wipe it nice and even all the way down. The reason why I love these so much is because it gets the primer in the nice tight areas without going too high onto the roof line. So that way you don't see the primer above the molding. So right here, this white area, this is actually what we call a gap in the bond line. So we want to make sure that we're covering that with the primer. That way the glue sticks properly. And then I will go all the way to the end and run it down all the way to the side. So here in the bottom corners, there's always going to be a gap in the bond line for the most part. So we want to make sure we're adding primer here to not let any glue adhesion go out the window. So once you get it all up in the corner, that's what it's going to look like all the way down. And same thing across the top on this side, making sure it's nice and tight all the way to the roof line. We're going to cover the gap right here in the corner. Make sure that's all covered. Now we run it down the side. Right here, you're gonna see the scraper tool made a little scratch right here on the inside. So what we're gonna do is make sure we cover that scratch to prevent rust. Now we're going to give it just one quick rundown, make sure we didn't miss any scratches whatsoever. So the next part here is arguably the most important part about the whole process. So I want you guys to really pay attention here. All right, so now that we got the old glue cut off, we got it nice and cleaned, we got the primer on, we are now ready to lay the new urethane or the new glue. So this part right here is arguably the most important part about the whole process, and I'm gonna explain why. So this here is the urethane that we use. This is from a brand called Sika, which is personally my favorite. They have the best glue that I've been using for just about a decade now, and I have no issues with them whatsoever. Love the glue. Let's get into it. So this glue specifically is called Sika Ultimate. This is a primerless to glass urethane, meaning the windshield that we cleaned, we got it all nice and decontaminated and nice and clean. That means I don't need any activator or any primer for this urethane to stick properly. The primerless system absolutely 100% meets the federal safety motor vehicle safety standards. So before we start applying the glue, we want to make sure we do one more thing before we do that. So you want to make sure that we are putting tape on the window. That way once we lay the new window on there, the window will stay put. So when we put the tape on, we want to try to put it on nice and evenly on both corners. That way, once we set the window, it looks pretty proportionate. You don't want it all lopsided. So the urethane companies provide us with a cap for the glue and also a nice brand new tip. So all we want to do is just make sure we screw these together. So this tip is cut out for what we call a V bead. So now there are two different ways that we can apply this glue. We can apply it in a V shape or we can apply it in a round bead. The round bead formation is completely out the window. You want to make sure that we are shooting the urethane in the shape of a V or a triangle, so that way when the glass compresses onto the urethane, there's room on the side of the urethane and the side of the car for the water to filtrate down. It will make more connection with the glass and it will be a much safer job for the customer. So we're always shooting a V bead. So before loading this into our caulking gun, what we're gonna wanna do is we're gonna wanna find the top, and the way you find the top of it is you want to find the Sika logo and you wanna go to the top above that. And next here to this metal thing, you're just gonna take an old screwdriver that you don't care about. And what we're gonna do is we're just gonna do a poke right on the right side of it, like so. Now you take your caulking gun of choice, which I use the Milwaukee electric one. Check out this nice Sika wrap here. So what we're gonna do, we are going to put it in to the tube. So now you're gonna take your tip and you're gonna put it right on top here. And then you're going to put the cap on the gun. And let's say you have already used the tip and you're reusing the same one. What you're gonna do, you need to grab a rag or a paper towel and you need to purge out the old glue that's in the old tip. So I let just that much come out just to get all the old dried up stuff out of it. So as we are applying the new glue, what we want to do is we want to keep it right in the middle of the old bond line. And as you're running the glue, you want to keep the gun at a 90-degree angle from the pinch weld. So I usually run the bottom and then start from the top center and then go down and meet it. On my electric tool, I'm at number 6 and I just control the throttle with the trigger here. Remember, we are at a great 90-degree angle, making sure it gets full connection with the pinch weld. Sometimes if you get a little off on the bond line, what you can do is you could run a tool just to go down the side and realign it a little bit. Okay, now let's do the top. And then in the corner, you're gonna see that we rounded it on the side of the existing one. So what we do is we just take our tool here. So you want to mend your joint together, make sure there is no gaps, make sure it's all nice and seamless. So when we make our joint, we want to take the tip and we want to put it right on the end and dig it into it. And then we start. Now same thing, we dig it into the top corner and then we go down. Okay, so when we are cleaning up our joints, we want to start from one side, make it nice and flat. We want to fold over the top, make sure that it is nice and connected. Now on our bottom joint, same thing. We're going to fold it right over each other, that way there's no gaps. And then we're going to go on the top joint and do the same thing. Make sure there's no gaps and it's all seamless. Okay, so now that we got the glue, you do a quick look and make sure that it is not wobbly or off center of any sort. You want to make sure that it's nice and straight. So there are many ways to get the window into the car. The method that I'm going to be showing you guys today is called the hand setting method. There are tools to help you with this to save your elbows and your back from damage. But just for the purpose of this video of trying to keep it as easy and affordable as possible for you guys, what we're gonna do is just hand set it right in there. So when we're doing this part, you wanna make sure that you're wearing nitrile gloves. That way you're not touching the inside of this frit band here and getting your oily fingers all over it. We wanna keep it as clean and as good as possible to make the best connection to the urethane. So you wanna make sure when you have the glass here, you wanna make sure you're right or left-handed. And what I do is, since I'm right-handed, I will put the cup right in front of the driver's face, just like this. And then now when we lift the glass, I have one hand on the cup and one hand down here in the center-ish of the window like this. I try to wrap my fingers around it as less as possible, so I do use my fingertips. So now when you're going to go set it, you want to make sure you're aligning the molding with the body of the car. Okay, so we go up, and we're gonna lean over the car just a little bit. We go down slowly and then look at your top corner. Make sure that the molding is good. You're gonna look across, make sure that the molding is good, and then you set. So now we wanna push the window into the glue, And we want to take the tape and we want to make sure we put it nice and securely so that the window stays put. We're gonna grab our suction cup and go to the other side. And as we notice, it was a great set here. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna push it into the glue, make sure the molding folds up on the body. We're gonna lay the tape on this side and we're good to go. You wanna make sure you do a quick walk around and make sure that the molding is even on both sides. So what we'll do is we'll get it pushed in. Right, then we're gonna look at the gap on this side and then we're gonna go to this side here. So see how it's a little bit tighter here? Now what we're gonna do, we're gonna slap the cup on this side just a hair. And we're just gonna pull it over just a little bit. Now we get the glass nice and decked. We get it nice and pushed in. You wanna make sure you go all the way around the glass. And we're fully decking the windshield everywhere. We wanna end the glue as much as possible. We go down slowly and then look at your top corner. Make sure that the molding is good. You're gonna look across, make sure that the molding is good, and then you set. So now we wanna push the sometimes the side of the moldings here will get not fully wrapped up onto the body. So what you can do is you can gently take a pick tool and you could actually just run it down the side of the molding. And you could get it to all sit nice and even all the way down, just like so. Okay, so now that we got the new windshield in there and it is all decked and all applied to the glue, now we just reverse everything. We get the new cowl put on, the mirror put on, and we get it all cleaned up, ready for the customer. So before that we get the cowl put on, what I like to do is I like to go through here and try to get all these leaves that get trapped under here. We live in the Pacific Northwest, so it happens quite a bit, so we're always cleaning up for sure. Now this is not a requirement, but this is just a courtesy thing that I like to do for my customers. So when we're applying the cowl, we want to make sure that we're looking here. So on one end, this will be the female end, and this will be the male end. So we want to make sure that we install this one first. The cowl will have these little fingers. These actually slip in between the glass and the plastic here. So we're going to put this right side on first. We're going to put the other side on. Now we want to come around the other side and make sure that we are slipping it in between nice and accurately. And then it does have these little push pins here that you need to make sure you're pushing in on all of them. So that way you can put the new clip on the corner part here. So the original ones broke, so we're going to replace them with brand new ones. Okay, so now we take the wipers, and a good rule of thumb is the shorter wiper blade always goes on the passenger side. The longer one always goes on the driver's side. So when putting it on, you want to essentially just put it right in the middle, and you want to try to align the wiper blade exactly in between the cowl and the top of the frit band right here. Some windows will also have a guide on the glass on where you put the wiper blades. So now we put them pretty accurately, nice and straight. And then now we're going to take our 14mm nuts and our wiper caps. We're going to thread it on first. That way we're not cross threading it, because these threads are very weak on these wiper arm posts. Now we don't need these super tight. There is a torque spec, which I do not know off the top of my head, but I've never had an issue with one of these, so I just do it pretty snug, like so. Nice and snug, just like so. And then these wiper caps, they just clip right on here. Okay, we're good to shut the hood. So now we get back to the inside. We want to make sure we're putting their oil change sticker back up. These rear view mirrors, like I said, super basic. We're just going to slide it right back on. Take our T20 bit here. We want to snug up that screw. And then we readjust it, and then we also let the customer know to readjust this when they get in for safety. So now we're gonna take a nice new microfiber, our sprayway glass cleaner, and a little razor blade here, and now we're gonna get the stickers off. Nice little coat. Some of these will actually just peel right off. We're just going at a nice 90-degree angle, like so. Now, for the best way to clean the windows, we wanna do a nice coat all the way around. You don't want too much, you don't want too little. And as we're wiping the window, you want to make sure that you're getting underneath the wiper blades and you're getting it nice and clean everywhere. Okay, so now that we're all done with the windshield installation, there are two very important things that you need to tell your customer, okay? You need to tell your customer to not wash the car for 2 days while the glue cures and hardens enough to withstand high pressure and soap that is in high pressure car washes. Also, the next thing that you need to tell your customer is very important, because depending on which glue you use, so if you use a 3-hour safe drive away time or a 30-minute safe drive away time glue, you need to be telling your customers when they are safe to drive the vehicle. So the safe drive away time is super crucial, because what that actually means is if it's a 30-minute safe drive away time, that means it takes 30 minutes for the glue to dry or cure enough to withstand an airbag impact or to hold the windshield in place just in case of a rollover accident. So make sure you're letting your customer know both of those things. Also, if you are a good company, you should be letting your customer know about your lifetime warranty against any workmanship issues at all. But other than that, thank you guys so much for clicking on the video and hopefully watching the whole thing. If you made it this far, I really appreciate you. And if you guys have any questions or any concerns or anything in the comments, please feel free to leave them and I will try my best to get back to you guys, okay? But other than that, thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you guys in the next one.